tube comes down into the back of your nose. Now, up here, what I'm going to show you is the top is my soft palate rising and falling. So there's the back of my nasopharynx. It's very glistening. You can see the levators of the soft palate on either side. At the back of it, you can see them. And then you can see that the pit of the adenoid, which is right there. So the adenoid covers that kind of like a horseshoe. I don't know if you can see how it's glistening, so there's air moving in and out of my ears as I speak, obviously. So that's where the eustachian tubes come down, empty into the back of the nose. So when you got a cold, and that's swollen, you can't equalize, right? So if I flew in yesterday with a cold, I wouldn't be able to equalize. And remember I said to you that I'll often go nasally to put the nasotracheal tube in? Or put the endotracheal tube in an emergency? This is why. As I come over back of my soft palate, think of it, right? So it's right there. That should look familiar. It better look familiar. I used to tell the joke, I do this at the emergency medicine course, and I'd say, now, for those of you that have never actually seen the vocal cords before, this is what they look like. But that epiglottis is kind of goofy looking, isn't it? That epiglottis is longer on the right than the left. And if you've been to the course, you know what I say here now. How many people have been to the course? Yeah. So you know, what do I say? What? Really, really high IQ people have them like that. Asymmetrical. Yours are probably all perfectly symmetrical. Okay. So there's the epiglottis right there. And so it's a straight shot down into the airway. So now you can see why when I'm in a jam and I've got angioedema, I've got Ludwig's angina, I want a straight shot in, I don't mess around in the mouth, I go directly for the nose. And I'll put in a small tube and I can change it out later. I just want to make sure I have a placeholder. Anyway, up in front of the epiglottis is the base of my tongue. And you can see it there. You can see the lymphoid tissue. See how marbled that is. See the big veins. That's why it often bleeds when you horse it with a laryngoscope. There's my grub worm. See it? It's my uvula sitting on the back of my tongue. And then as I slip over the back of the tongue, I'm in the vallecula. And I'm going to take you down and I'm going to show you a neurovascular bundle. It'll be purple and white in the middle and red, and that's the vein, the nerve, and the artery. And so one of the branches of the vagus goes on to the undersurface of my epiglottis through the vallecula. So that if I can get 5% lidocaine to pool there, it'll numb that nerve. Right? Make sense? Okay. So it's like a horseshoe. I don't know if you can see it or not. That's just spit, by the way. Okay. So that's the neurovascular bundle. There's one on the other side. Now I'm going to stick my tongue out and I'm going to show you the hyoepiglottic ligament. And it's quite robust. Yeah. So now I come down and back of that, there's my epiglottis. There's my arytenoids opening and closing as I speak. That always gets a charge. The intra-arytenoid folds, I'm not numb there, so I'm touching the undersurface of my epiglottis if I may cough. The intra-arytenoid folds, the aryepiglottic folds on either side, the epiglottis. So now I'll take you down inside of the voice box. So the cords, the vocal cords, the true vocal cords are lower, and on top of those, the false vocal cords. And in laryngospasm, the true and false cords come together. But you can either overcome that with muscle relaxation, or you can just drop the tube through without damaging very much. Very much. Save a life. Okay, so a couple things I want to show you. First of all, I'm going to show you the chicken neck. Now look at my chin. It's a chicken neck maneuver. Watch what happens on your screen when I do the chicken neck maneuver.
Ooh, wow.
So you can see what a jaw thrust would do, or why pulling on the tongue is so important, opening that up. You can move it forward. Now the other thing I'm going to show you is when you go to put an endotracheal tube through the trachea, you always say to the patient, take a breath. Well, taking a breath is a voluntary maneuver. When you take a breath, deep breath, your cords can open, or they can close. I can close them voluntarily. What I tell them to do is sniff. Because when you sniff, just snot, hang on. So when you sniff, your cords open involuntarily. So, right? So if you tell them, take a long sniff, they have to open the cords, the tube has to go through, as opposed to saying, take a deep breath through your mouth. Good trick. Okay, so now, let me take it down inside either side. Here's the piriform recess. The piriform recess leads to the esophagus. And usually there's a neurovascular bundle I can put in there. Let's just spin. I don't see it today. It's usually right up at 12 o'clock. Yeah, I don't see it. So anyway, so that's your piriform recess on one side. Here's your piriform recess on the other side. So you can see it's a pretty easy thing to do. Now, I don't have much of a gag reflex. So I have no numbing back there at all. My nose is numb, but nothing else is numb. So I can feel me bouncing off my posterior pharynx. I can feel me bouncing off my tongue. That doesn't bother me. So that's our little secret. Now, let me take it out. I'll show you the correct thyroid membrane, just for grins. Now, I try not to touch much, because there's no local anesthetic down there. Okay, want to see my prostate? Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. One of the guys that was the original founders of the course, his name was Bob Schneider. And Bob and I were going to a course one time, and this was in the late 1990s, and this notion that an emergency doctor could do this just kind of wasn't catching on. Even you can see how easy it is. And so Bob said, you need to demystify it. He said, why don't you scope yourself? I never thought of that before. I said to him, why don't you scope yourself? He's a urologist. And so I can, scopes aren't long enough, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So I said I'd show you some other neat stuff on the way up. So there's the very intelligent epiglottis. And somebody said, who's the guy with the black snake in his nose if he's so smart? And then I come back up into the nasopharynx. Now, so there's the back of it. Now let's go lateral here. There's that white thing you see on the right-hand side. That's my inferior turbinate. And look at that. Okay. Those are arteries. If you look carefully, you can see them pumping. So and that's the sphenopalatine, actually, the branch of sphenopalatine. One of them becomes the greater palatine artery, goes down. So where you see it joining there's a foramen. If you stick your finger in your mouth next to your molar, you can feel a little lump. That's the foramen. And if you have opposed to your nosebleed, I was talking about that, you can just take a 25 gauge short needle, 5/8, bent it at 60 degrees, shove it up through there, and put about 4 or 5 mils of lidocaine and epinephrine, you can stop the nosebleed. Okay, so there's the inferior turbinate. That's just snot. Septum's on your left. And middle turbinate is right there. There's my middle turbinate. The boogers today, nice and clean. My superior turbinate is up above that.